late start. Sorry.
It's been that kind of day.
I know, right?
Well, you look the part, but let's see some of your moves.
Feeling like a star, you can't stop my shine. I'm loving God's city, my head's in the sky. I'm solo, I'm running solo, I'm running solo, I'm running solo. Yeah, I'm feeling good tonight. Finally feeling free and it feels so right. Oh, time to do the things I like. Gonna see a princess, everything's alright. Oh, no job but an answer to. Ain't a fixture in the palace too. No, and since the carpet nights off me, I'm living life now that I'm free. Yeah, told me get myself together. Now I got myself together. Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carpet night is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading.
Well,
All
according
right.
to the song, things are getting better.
Huh?
According to the song, things are supposed to get better.
Well, it can't get any worse today. I mean, you know, it's first world problems where my podcast on one of my six
Magnet
max.
fishing in Amsterdam. Yeah, there's something big here. Oh, here it comes. I've got it.
Hang on. I got.
You got it?
Out of the mud.
There
Just
we
gonna
go.
pull it.
Hang on. There we go. Too many people talking. There we go. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Can you hear us okay?
Is that fan? Try to point the mic away from the fan.
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, good. All right. Just gotta make sure I can hear over the fan. That's my. How's your week been? Besides the last couple minutes of me getting this all.
Oh, it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have the brand new president of the organization coming to our hospital tomorrow. So we're also doing what's called Thankful Thursday. Every month, one Thursday a month, we do something nice for the staff. Not saying we don't do it every other day, but it's something special. And it just so happens to be the day that the new guy's coming to visit our campus.
Oh, is that good or bad?
Oh, it's fantastic. Tomorrow's going to be an early day for me because I have to be there before 5. So,
well, and tomorrow's a new marking period, so I get to meet up with 6 classes of 20 kids each of brand new students. So, I get to do all the things correctly that I did wrong in the first 2 marking. in theory.
In theory.
So,
how about you, John?
Well, aside from finding out that our theater is on the list for closures, not too bad. But,
well, yeah, well, that's, but you're the asset. The job is not you. So,
right. Yeah, they also haven't confirmed or denied if we're actually closing, so.
I will tell you, movie theaters, the funny thing is, they have kept making a comeback. I remember in the 80s when they're like, well, there's not going to be any theaters left. Once those VHS tapes come out, people
in cable.
In cable. And, there is, I think COVID kind of hurt some that weren't careful, but yeah, that's a tricky business. So, but we have Bad Batch episode this week, thanks to Ken.
Yeah, it's a deep one. So I'm curious. Are you guys caught up?
I am caught up.
I'm caught up.
So where do you want to start with? Do you want to start with today's episode, or start looking at it as a whole in terms of what we've seen so far?
Well, should we touch on today's before we get all philosophical?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what today was Entombed.
Yeah. Am I the only one who got Indiana Jones vibes from today's episode?
No, I got those, but you know what? Which one I got? I got Fifth Element.
Oh, see, I got Goonies.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, and Indiana Jones. That's
Fifth
for
Element from the stone carvings.
Mm.
That it reminded me a little bit of the Fifth Element stuff.
Oh, the little stone bricks that they had.
Yeah, and they had those lines on it. So,
yeah, I thought today's episode was not up to par from everything else we've gotten this season, but not a bad episode. Does that make sense? Not as big of a hit, but not a bad episode.
yeah, I think what was different for me, I couldn't figure out, like, all of the ones that I know people use filler as like a negative term, which I don't really have a problem with. But I couldn't figure out why this one was here yet. Like, I think I know. My thoughts, I think I know. I hope I know what it's for. I think it was to flesh out the new character, to show, her pirate and treasure quest. And then in my eyes, that leaves the door open for Hondo. That leaves the door open for Dr. Afra.
Well, the other piece to that, not just the cat, her name is Fee, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not only is it important to flush her out, but I think relative to this whole show, it's about relationships. So where does she fit in with the Bad Batch? Where does she fit in with the individual members of the Bad Batch? And how is that going to play out through the rest of this? Because you could see a couple times through the whole season where Omega would kind of mimic certain people, certain characters. And in this one, she just happened to mimic the pirate Fee. And it makes you wonder what she's picking up and learning from all these people and what it's going to mean to the larger story. I think that's just my interpretations and impressions of what we saw today.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I was just looking, like, because at first I was just trying to say, I was just trying to figure out, like, who was connected to who or whom or whatever.
Because early on in the episode, we saw that Hunter and I think it was Echo, when they were in, was it Sid's? They were still in Sid's cantina or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They were kind of making fun of her to a certain degree, not believing all of her words, not believing, her stories have changed. And then when they get out into the field with her, they don't necessarily trust her right away, but then she proves what she knows, what she can do, and so on. So I think their impressions of her shifted at the end of the episode versus where they were at the beginning. Not saying that they're best buds or anything like that, but at least now they have a different impression of her than just listening to the fables and myths that she spins for the patrons of that bar.
Now, did Hunter seem beat down to you guys? Did he look like beat down?
Yeah, he definitely didn't seem himself.
Yeah, and I think some of that came from some of the interactions that we saw in the very first episode.
Yeah.
And so I think they're all starting to feel the weight of their reality in different ways. Even to the point where I believe that at some point they're going to be stretched and have to make a decision in terms of, do they stay together as a solid unit, or do they go out and do different things? It definitely wasn't one of the most upbeat episodes.
No.
It was very creative, and when I said it had, for me, it was Goonies sensation when that giant robot monster thing came alive. I just thought of it as like a giant pirate ship coming out of the cave at Astoria.
Yeah. See, to me, that looked like Dialga from Pokemon. That was the only visual I had when I saw that thing. I'm like, that's like if you crossed the thing from Horizon and Dialga, and that's exactly what that was. So even down to the little face laser that it had, I was like, oh, that seems like a Pokemon move.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I don't want to. Again, I learned from the Clone Wars. You don't judge an episode by its episode, because they're all pieces in a mosaic of shows. Especially the ones that seem like they don't matter.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that happens to a bunch of people is they may pick up one episode or they'll come across one of these episodes like I don't understand this, and then they'll either stop watching or they'll dismiss it or they'll talk smack about it. But then 6 episodes later, like, oh, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
If I'd only given it so now I have to go back and rewatch it because these pieces here were tied together that connected to that was it the 5th episode? We're in the 5th episode at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old comic books of the yesteryear where they would have a little asterisk and it would say, like, you're reading Amazing Spider-Man and he would say, hey, I haven't seen you since blah, blah. And then in a little asterisk in the corner, it'd be like Fantastic Four number 32. And you'd have to run to your comic book store and see if they had that episode.
I need this issue. This issue.
Oh,
the story doesn't make sense to me.
So,
yeah. And it's also hard to believe that we're in our 4th week of the Bad Batch.
is it 4? Oh, yeah, because we had the first. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost been a month since it premiered. So that's hard for me to fathom so far that we're already churning through January. So
the one thing I'll say about this, just like with the other episodes, I'm sad that they're so short because I just think that there's so much that they could do, and I know it sounds selfish and greedy, and I'll still say it out loud anyway. I just feel like I would like more. I would like more story. I would like more adventuring.
Oh, definitely.
mm-hmm.
Like we're okay. So Fee knows this story about the heart of the mountain or whatever, but going into that story, I would have, if I didn't see what I see, I never would have guessed that they were looking for a key that's going to unlock some giant monster robot thing that could walk out of a mountain.
Well, and do you think maybe that connects to the new books,
the High Republic?
High Republic. Because she did make a point talking about how old that whatever thing was.
The compass?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Because when you think of what we saw, so they landed on this planet and they said it was raised. I mean, that's a very specific word.
Yeah.
It wasn't barren, it wasn't desolate, it was raised. And from what I understand, the word raising, so that means that the stuff was destroyed deliberately.
Yeah.
And then they go through this mountain tunnel passage and secret booby traps and stuff like that. And then the monster gets awoken. Like, how did that monster robot thing get encased in the mountain to begin with?
Well, or more importantly, why?
Yeah.
I mean, because that, now that you say that, I'm like, could that be like they might have just inadvertently made their next mission of having to fight something?
Yeah, like did turning the robot on, did that attract somebody's attention? Like did it send ripples throughout the galaxy that were sort of, they turned on our robot and now we have to go and
Right.
See what's up. Because we didn't see them leaving the planet, did we?
No.
No, I think we just saw him get in the ship.
Yeah.
I was hoping they'd find a new ship.
Wait, you don't like the Marauder?
I do, but I was just, I'm still mad about the Razor Crest being blown up, so I don't think anyone deserves to keep their ship.
Yeah, I think overall this episode just, it was a very safe episode.
Yeah,
it didn't do anything too big. Wasn't boring, but it was just overall it was a safe, good episode.
Well, and again, we could, it could open up into something bigger.
Right.
So
I'm still incredibly impressed with the advancement of the cartoon, the advancement of the animation, the advancement of the lighting and the shading and the environments that they create for this show.
Oh, definitely. And I don't understand that. Like, see, that's where my knowledge, like when you watch the credits and you see all those people, I understand what they do, but I don't understand how that applies to animation. Like I'm just thinking, like, don't you just write a computer program and have the guys move around? You know what I mean? Like when you say directing, I'm like, oh yeah, really? Okay. That doesn't I'm still trying to learn what that means. I would love to see behind the scenes of them showing, like, okay, here's how we direct light. Because like those animatics, I understand how you get the animatics, and then you have to put skins on them. But it seems to me, like in my mind, I think, well, once you do it, then it's done. And I know that's not the case.
You got to give direction to the voice actors.
Yeah, I know.
And somebody's got to do the whipping.
All right, so now we should go to the broader topics that you got for us, Ken. See if I have
I got Facebook here somewhere.
Here we go. Bad Batch right here. I want to start with the droids versus clones versus stormtroopers. Because this is my thoughts. Is the Bad Batch not quite as bad as they think they are? Because they really only fought droids. Like, they weren't killing people. Overall. Like, most of the clones were just killing droids.
Right.
And do you think that's that's an adjustment for them? Because the droids weren't the greatest, like, when it came to some kinds of combat.
Well, they weren't the greatest, but the droids were designed to overwhelm by sheer numbers.
Right.
So whether it's, thousands of regular battle droids or, a dozen super battle droids or a handful of droidicas, I think it was just a matter of, and plus the tanks and the vulture droids and all of those kind of things. I think they were just meant to swarm and destroy as much as earthly possible.
I always picture Wookiees tapping them on the head and thinking of fighting Trandoshans and then just tapping the Bad Batch on the head like a little child, that like, oh sure, you're the Bad Batch. No, I know. Because I think the droid part, I think like when they had the crosshair episode, that it showed, how ruthless the droids were. So I'm not, but it also showed that once you figure out they have a certain kind of plan, that they can take care of it pretty quick.
Well, and with that in mind, so the droids had to be programmed and controlled by, in some cases, things external to them, even to the point in the Phantom Menace where they were powered by an external source.
Yeah, they fixed that pretty quick, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was like, at least the droids were like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea to have a giant unarmed ship that controls everything.
And then they got into, what were there was another droid in was it the third episode? The tactician or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So leading the droids or controlling the droids from the battlefield so they could see what was going on and make adjustments, right there in real time.
Yeah. Well, and then the what was it the first? Was it the? I don't know if it was the first season of the Bad Batch or the episodes of that with the Bad Batch in the Clone Wars was. Didn't they have a tactician droid's head when they went to find Echo?
It's definitely. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the droids, I do think that they're in the show. They're proving that the Bad Batch it lives up to the hype. Like I was just making fun of the fighting of droids, but I think like even that racing episode showed how advanced they are. Like just from tech being able to drive that and do all that so
Well, and
fast, so
so there
quick.
was the faster part, but then there was also the willing to risk, the willing to go beyond what would be considered normal parameters or whatever. Like, I don't think a droid would go out of its way to run the risk of damaging itself.
Right.
Whereas tech's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, I may not have 100% faith in it, but I'm still going to do it and go from there.
Well, that's what I wonder if the Jedi are what helped the clones break that cycle. Because overall, other than a few Jedi, the Jedi treated the clones relatively well.
Yeah, and I think that sets up that dynamic, that difference between the droids and the clones. Because if you look at the similarities between the two, both, we'll call them units, both units were created for specific purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So the droids were designed for battle, the clones were designed for battle. Even go so far as say they were programmed. I mean, you hear about Crosshair saying, good soldiers follow orders. That could very easily be translated into good droids follow programming.
Yep.
And then we get to where we are now, where some of the clones are starting to question that programming, questions the things that they did under the guise of being programmed to do it. And I think that was one of the harder hitting lines from the solitary. Was it the solitary soldier or the solitary clone? Where Rex made the comment something to the effect, and I apologize for butchering this, but one of the things that separates clones from the droids is we have to live with our choices.
Yeah, and that's and I don't think the droids ever really evolved. Like I don't think the droids got smarter.
Not those droids, no.
I mean, maybe the gray ones, the super battle droids, but the tan ones, they definitely didn't get any smarter.
Only when they were reprogrammed. When they, like, for instance, in the Freemakers, adventures, where the one was it Roger, he was trained to cook.
Well, and it is so with the clones and the droids. I always think of like the end of World War II, when there was just a glut of military equipment spread all over the world. And then you think of the universe, there's a glut of droids everywhere. Like, and there's a glut of, because all those military ships either had to be dismantled or repurposed for something. And that's kind of neat to see. It was neat to see, because if you could get a hold of a battle droid, I'm surprised like every protocol droid is just not a battle droid. Like, oh, you can have a protocol droid, or look, I'll give you like 6 battle droids, it's just funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see in Attack of the Clones, they're compatible.
Yeah, that's just put the head on it. Then I would also think there's a lot of, I think that's also explains a lot of the animosity towards droids. Because the people took the brunt of it.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one of the other differences, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, where the clones were programmed mostly to destroy the droids, where the droids they didn't care who they destroyed or what they destroyed. They just followed their orders. I'm gonna go into this town and blow up every building or shoot every human or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could totally see why bartenders would say that they don't serve their kind there.
Right. And then to bring it on to your other versus stormtroopers, then the problem with the clones is you have a standing army that if they all decide what's right, and I say right in quotes, they have no reason to, they have no stake in the game if they want to mutiny. You know, if you have an army of clones that, you know, that have been living in it, if they all of a sudden decide, well, we don't want to follow these orders, I think that's why the Empire is phasing them out. Because the Empire is, you know, they're taking in conscripts and all that from planets. Well, you don't know who's under the helmet.
Well, there's that piece,
Right.
but then I don't. It might have been in the first season of the Bad Batch where Tarkin was talking about the cost.
Yeah.
You know, so the Kaminoans had to pay a certain amount to raise the clones, so to feed the clones, to clothe the clones, and all that sort of stuff, which ultimately that cost got passed on to the Empire for the price of the clones.
Yeah.
But when you have conscripts come in, you didn't have to pay that family to raise that human or that creature. The family took care of all that. Then they came on board to the Empire, so they were far less expensive than the clones were. And it's even more disturbing to think of it from that perspective, because you have these government officials who are looking at individuals as tools, as things that they pay for and exchange money for, rather than, you know, these are creatures, human beings, sentience, whatever.
Well, don't you think that comes from George's feelings of the Vietnam War?
Oh goodness, yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know, in the if you talk to anyone, especially that went into the war early, it was not the military that we see today. You didn't get really cool commercials with soldiers doing like really cool stuff. It was like you're on the list of numbers, and if your number gets pulled, you're going to boot camp, and you're going to get a plastic gun made by a toy company that's probably not going to work in wet weather, and have at it, you know. And I think George saw so many of his friends just become that you know, piece of a cog in the wheel, you know. And I don't think any generation since then, because I know even when the first Gulf War hit, and a lot of people who had no idea that they would ever have to go in the military, I mean, they were in the military, but they signed up just to pay for college. That was still not the drastic pull that the draft did.
Yeah, and you also got to see, you know, the influence of money and prestige in that. So if you were, you know, of a certain class, you could pay to escape the draft. You could, you know, you could get somebody to write a letter saying you have bone spurs, and you don't get put into the mix. But if you don't have access to that kind of stuff, you're up that creek without a paddle, or up that creek without a boat.
Yeah, well, or what happened like with my biological dad and a bunch of his friends, they got arrested for relatively minor things that would have maybe put them in jail for a year or two, and they got the option of no jail time, go straight to the military in 1965, 1966, you know. So there was a whole that affects different people different, you know.
And I know we're not, you know, we're mostly talking about Bad Batch. I think that's a wonderful connection to Andor.
Yeah,
because they were talking about, you know, quotas of rounding up people for criminal offenses. You know, so they were in some ways making up offenses just so that they could put them in these quote unquote prisons, which were really, you know, factories.
Yep.
You know, with no true sense of being able to get out, whether it's good behavior or serving your time. You're making cogs in our wheel.
Yep.
Whether you want to or not.
Well, and the really I don't know, when you talk about Bad Batch episode, I was thinking of all that, and then I started like thinking, well, Filoni's a little, I think he's probably between your age and my age, Ken, if I'm not mistaken, or in that same age bracket. But I was thinking, like what, like if you look at the Bad Batch, when I first saw the Bad Batch, I think it was the animatics or something like that. The Hunter really bothered me. He looked like he was watching a Rambo cartoon and thought, "Hey, you know, I and that was the one when I first saw it, and then I started thinking like they're almost they're an homage to so much that we grew up in from the 50s to now in I guess you would call it before superhero movies, like A-Team, which is obvious choice, Rambo, MacGyver, Airwolf. Like I'm thinking of all these shows that they have a little bit, like a little smattering of everything. John's like, I don't know what any of this stuff is.
Nope.
You've never heard of the A-Team?
Well, I know what the A-Team is.
Okay. Please tell me we're not that old.
No.
In case you're wondering, Dave Filoni was born in 1974.
Oh,
so
okay.
He's 1 year older than I am.
Yeah, so he is in between us. So closer to you. Yeah. But our chat thing is not working. I just figured that out. So if anyone is watching and they're chatting, for some reason that is not working. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, it is definitely not working. Rural Farm Boys here.
Yeah, I know. So I appreciate that. But I had just had computer problems for any of those who joined late. So I was doing pretty good at no computer problems for a couple weeks, and then I think I got to, as Han Solo say, you know, don't get cocky, kid, and I did. And, but yeah, no, I was thinking of all the homages because you know in Clone Wars, there's like so many like the monster movies and stuff. And so when I saw that robot today, now this you might even be too young. Johnny Sacco and his giant robot. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen it once.
When I was a kid, that was one of my that would be the predecessor, I would say, to Power Rangers.
And maybe even predecessor to like Voltron.
Yeah, Voltron and stuff. But Johnny, it almost gave me, I was like, oh, I wonder, you know, is there going to be someone that has something that controls these giant robots that all of a sudden, you know. But if you want to get a really funny Ultraman, it's reminiscent of Ultraman too. But Johnny Sacco's giant robot was a good cartoon. I bought a bootleg copy because they're public domain. You know how you go, I don't know if they have them anymore, but at the cons you could usually buy old public domain videotapes from Japan. Do you remember those?
Yep.
And they would just be so poorly put on the tape. And I did buy one Johnny Sacco, and it's floating around here somewhere. I think the first episode might even be on iTunes, to be honest with you. So, but that's what I'm thinking. Like all these things, like Sid reminds me of Taxi, the TV show, with Danny DeVito as the guy giving out.
You realize who Sid's voice is?
No,
it's Rhea Perlman.
Oh, well, then that's even so. So it's his wife. Is that his?
I thought she was. No, she was in Cheers.
She was in Cheers, but I was just thinking of Danny DeVito, and I wasn't really allowed to watch Taxi, so I only saw it in bits and pieces. Like it was considered a bad show, but I just always because Danny DeVito was just like this firecracker, just giving people the like bossing around and stuff. So, but yeah, A-Team. I'm trying Riptide. Do you remember the show Riptide?
Yeah, I didn't watch that one as much.
Riptide, because they had like a computer genius back before the internet was. He was doing stuff on the computer, but we didn't have the internet, so we never really understood how he did it. But you know, I just like that homage. When I first saw it, like the animatics. I think the animatics is what turned me off the first time I watched it. So,
well, in some ways, it's hard to watch things in their rough form, unless you're actively involved in the creation or the polishing of it or whatever. For some people.
Well, and I think Clone Wars took me a while to get used to that animation to begin with. Like it took probably the first season. I liked it from the beginning, but it took a little while. You just had to kind of, okay, that's Obi-Wan. Okay, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you had to be willing to give it its time. You had to be willing to give yourself the time with it. Because
Now, do you think Bad Batch and Clone Wars would have been as big if we knew we were going to get more Star Wars movies?
I think so.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I think the Clone Wars, and even the live action shows that we're getting are really an extension of what George wanted to do from the beginning. Yeah, he put the movies together, and he had aspirations for doing television as well, and that's why we ended up getting things like young Indiana Jones and young Sherlock Holmes and that kind of stuff. He wanted to dabble in the ability to do these smaller in time shows that added up to larger stories. I mean, think about it. We're going to get 16 episodes of the Bad Batch this season. That's what, about 8 hours of show?
Yeah.
That's that's 4 movies. 4 2-hour movies.
Or one Avengers movie.
Or Way of Water. But so I think George wanted to do those sort of things, and it gives the opportunity to develop the characters much more than you can, in the films.
I honestly just hope, and I know we have it pretty good, but I can't wait till there's just weekly Star Wars of any kind. Like I just can't, like, we're almost there, but I just hope that just more creators keep pouring into Disney Plus, and then I can just turn it on and there'll be a new Star Wars of any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think the one thing that the three of us can continue to do, and I think we do a great job of it, 1, absorbing it, and 2, sharing the love of it. Because it seems like we've talked about it a bunch. There's lots of doom and gloom, lots of negativity, poo-pooing this, poo-pooing that. And if that becomes the loudest voice, then who's to say that Disney doesn't say, okay, we're not going to do this show anymore. We're not going to do any more of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as we transition from the looking at the droids versus the stormtroopers versus the clones, what are your thoughts this season as it relates to the topic of choice or choices that we've even seen just in these 5 episodes?
You mean?
So, for instance, if we go back to the original trilogy, Luke had to make some pretty important choices. Does he stay on Dagobah and train with Yoda, or does he choose to leave because he had a vision of his friends getting hurt? So at that moment of choice, he had to be aware of where he was and where he was going, and had to make a decision and had to live with the consequences of those decisions, either to reap the rewards of them or to acknowledge that decision may not have been the best one and to learn from that. So what kind of things do you see showing up in these 5 episodes where the characters have had to make some of those choices already?
Well, I think in that heist, the heist one especially, they had to take, and it was probably a wrong choice, but they had to take a high risk target to try to get some money. Like that was almost like a choice / gamble. Like, okay, look, that's and I think why it went kind of south is they did go against what their normal choices would have been in the first 2 episodes, because they were trying to stay away from the Empire. They were trying to just get by, and then they maybe they didn't really have a choice, but I think they made a wrong choice there.
Well, and going back to what you were saying before about they didn't shoot people before.
Yeah.
They shot droids, where in the heist specifically, members of the Bad Batch, with the exception of Wrecker and his handmade, tank cannon thing,
Yeah.
other than him, they were choosing to stun the clones. They were stunning them rather than killing them. So even that choice in that bigger choice or that different choice led to certain results. And you could even go so far as to say, other than them surviving, the choice of doing that mission was a failure.
Yeah.
They didn't get any of the treasure. They didn't get any of the bounty, the booty that they were going for.
And they put
Other than
themselves
the
back
treasure,
on the map.
What was that, John?
they got the treasure of adventure.
Well, and Omega got that little golden kaleidoscope from Serrano.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, that was a neat part, because you realize, it made me realize none of the clones ever got to be children.
Yeah, not as, I mean, they skimmed right through that life cycle,
Yep.
and they didn't get the benefits of play and creativity, to the point where in one episode last season, it was the first time Omega had been off Camino, and she was fascinated by dirt.
Yeah. It was like when Rey saw trees.
Yeah, didn't know there was that much green in the whole galaxy.
Yeah, I think this season so far has done a really good job of humanizing
Mm-hmm.
all of the different characters. I mean, when it comes to choices, I mean, look at the Crosshair episode. Crosshair is willingly choosing to stay with the Empire because he thinks it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
Even though he gets shunned by the rest of the clones, the upper brass, if you will, have no desire to keep him around other than the fact that he's a loyal soldier. And all of his brothers are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the small thing of the humans calling the clones just by their number is just a way to just keep them down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, you're just this object. So.
Well, and look at Wilco. Look at the choice he made.
Yeah.
He chose to follow his training. He chose to do what the right soldier should do. And what did it get him? It got him a blaster bolt to the face and tossed over the edge of a balcony or a cliff.
And he was one of the clones with a good hair gene. Because some of those clones, I think that Kaminoans were just muddling around with the hair gene. You know what I mean?
No, I always thought that was going back to choices. I thought that was them attempting to stand out, to be personal in this sea of everybody having the same face.
Oh yeah, but what was the guy, the farmer guy, that the deserter?
Cut.
He didn't have that same hair gene.
Oh yeah, didn't he have like I do, like the bald spot on top and the hair in the back?
So, but yeah, I mean it's almost like if you look at the episode list, you wonder like what big choices are going to be made. Like, because I think a big choice coming up is they're going to decide if they stick together.
Yeah,
they're going to decide. I think the Bad Batch is going to decide the fate of Crosshair.
Really?
Not in the sense of they're going to be the ones that kill him or this or that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that either they try to rescue him, or there's a chance where they, you know what I mean, or they let him go when they could. I think there's going to be a choice by the team, or at least some of the team members, that dictates some of his fate. That's
it is very interesting to think about how their paths will come back together at some point.
Yeah,
because he knows they're alive. They know he's alive. I do find it interesting, though, that in that episode with Wilco, who was the guy who shot him? Was that Rampart?
I think so. I just don't like it.
Vice Admiral Rampart.
Yeah, so Rampart had claimed that he killed the Bad Batch on Camino.
Right.
Wilco had proof that he didn't, and Wilco died for that.
Yeah.
But Crosshair knows that the rest of the Bad Batch is still alive, and it seems like he's chosen not to tell the Empire that.
Well, I often wonder if he thinks that Crosshair is the only one that can get rid of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Because
I'm not sure.
I think they think of the average clones as basic crap, and I think for
It's
some
battle
reason,
droids.
yeah, and I think Crosshair has a little. I don't know if they're just scared of him. You know what I mean? But I think they're just his reputation might be saving him a little bit. You know.
Well, I mean, he's done what he's been asked to do. You know, good soldiers follow orders.
Yep.
He's been successful in the missions that he's been dispatched to. So I think they would be foolish not to keep him because, you know, he's been given orders, followed through on those orders, got the mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Whereas the same can't be said of everybody else. Because I thought too, maybe I'm just imagining this. I thought he was going to be involved in some of the training of either the stormtroopers or the clones or something along those lines.
Well, see, that's what I thought we were going to see Cody. I didn't think Cody was going to have as much of an active part as he did. Like I pictured Cody being more of like a passive leader in the training instead of like just like an actual soldier still doing soldiering work. You know. Because I would think he would have got in trouble for not killing Kenobi. They'd be like, "Look, you all killed your Jedi," and like I would have thought that's the first thing Vader would have taken care of. Look, okay, give me that. Whoever didn't kill Kenobi, get rid of him. You know. But who knows? But we have. I mean, I'm just thinking like we have. I'm looking at the episode list, and I look at Truth or Consequences. To me, that could be a Crosshair meetup. You know, like a battle. The Metamorphosis is another one. You know, and I don't know the tipping point. Is that where the Bad Batch decides their choices? Hey, no more Crosshair. What'd I miss?
Where did you get that picture, John?
What was that a picture of?
I've just seen it on like Star Wars group, like Facebook groups all the time. Oh, I was just gonna try and silently sneak that in there.
Yeah, like that one in the chicken strips.
That's funny.
Well, they've already planted the seeds for some potential division of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got Hunter, who seems like wants to figure out a way to give Omega a normal life or a different life, because they were born and bred to be soldiers. They were trained to be soldiers, and Omega wasn't.
Right.
And so I think Hunter wants to be able to be that father that Django wanted to be for Boba, and so he wants that. Whereas you've got someone like Echo, a regular clone, who wants to do more to help people, even if it means he has to do soldiering in that realm. Still wants to help. And those two ideas in some ways are in opposite directions.
Well, and to talk more about Echo, of all of them, Echo is one of the people, and it's the same with, you know, people that are really hurt in the military physically. He can't go back to not being partly what he is due to, you know, being wired in by the droids and all that. You know what I mean? Like the other guys can lose their armor and start a farm like what's his face and try to, you know, put it all in a trunk and keep it till, you know, like they have to go Rambo or something. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, we're going to be up till March 29th on these. So
I can't believe we're getting an entire month where we're gonna have to keep up on the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian.
we're going to have to shorten our show to like 15 minutes just so we can watch everything.
Yeah, no kidding. Be like, hey guys, welcome to the new episode of the Inflatable Falcon.
There was
Mando,
Star Wars
great.
stuff.
Bad Batch, great. All right, see you guys next week.
Yep. See you next week. So,
Well, it's interesting because coming back to the Bad Batch in the trailer, we heard Rex asking the Batch if they were up for a mission. So it makes me wonder, what kind of mission is this? Is this going to be something to do with other regular clones? Is this going to be?
I predict episode 10 retrieval. That's Rex's mission. That's my guess.
A whole nother 5 weeks. Ugh.
And it makes you wonder, like, who are they retrieving? Are they retrieving some of those AWOL clones?
Gunji.
Oh yeah, okay. I forgot about that. He was a captured Jedi. You're right.
And you also got to think, like, because Cody is going to show back up at some point.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't just bring him in just to be like, sorry, he's
AWOL.
no longer out of here. But
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious what happens with Cody. But
who knows? We got to remember the age-old saying: trust in Dave Filoni.
right. We trust.
And the interesting thing is, I don't think he did a lot of the writing for these episodes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But is he executive producer?
I believe so.
I mean, because I know that there's writers, but if you're an executive producer, especially with Dave Filoni's weight, if they don't write something he doesn't like, it's getting sent back to him. Like, he doesn't seem like someone who would let someone just go off a little weird on something. That's just, like, unless he agreed with it.
And many of the people have been involved with other Star Wars properties, so it's not like it's a new batch. It's not like they're all rookies. They've been involved and the story group, absolutely. They're all working much closer than they ever have before.
I think, as much as I love movies, the one thing I do like about the animation, especially the way the Clone Wars stuff's animated, it's just so cool that every little detail has been put there. Like, because when you watch a movie, there could be something fly by in the background that they didn't mean to be there, and then we make something out of it for years and years and years,
Or we catch the error, like Gene's guy in The Mandalorian.
Right. That still seems weird that someone didn't catch that in editing.
Yeah, with how overproduced these shows are, I'm shocked that one. And same with like the Starbucks Cup in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But then, if you have an overworked person watching like 3 monitors, putting sound mixing and this and that, they're probably like, well, this scene looks okay. And if you get that full editor that's not a Star Wars fan, he's like, well, I just thought it was a guy waiting there. But it's just neat because you just every little if you go back, and even if you just look in the junkyard when they were searching for scrap and the things she picked up, like if that was a movie, they would have just went and got some oddball stuff, and only 2 things would have really meant something,
Well, even to the point where these shows are built now, where there are things floating in the air.
Yeah.
So we talked about lighting. It's not just a straight beam of solid yellow light or whatever.
Yeah.
You can see smoke or particles. The one episode, The Solitary Soldier, where they went to that town that was a circled castle kind of thing, and there was smoke and clouds and dust and all of that sort of stuff, and it looked different than that very first episode that we saw them running from the giant crab things.
Yeah.
So they're able to change how things look, and to your point, all of the little pieces that show up. It's remarkable. And I think if folks say, "Well, I don't watch those shows because I can't get past the animation," you're missing out. You're missing some art. You're missing some fantastic stories.
And what's nice is because you have Clone Wars, Rebels, what's the other one that where they were on the ship, the big boat in the water?
Resistance.
Resistance. You have so many styles of animation now.
Yep.
That if you just let yourself like check it out, you'll like it. So, well, I know. We have 12 minutes, so we should have some wrap up here on our.
So before we go, I want to share a famous Star Wars quote with you, and I want to hear how you think it relates to this season, this season of the Bad Batch. And the quote is that courage, loyalty, and love are the strongest forces in the universe. So how do you think that plays out in the Bad Batch?
Say it again.
Courage, loyalty, and love are the strongest forces in the universe. And you get bonus points if you know where that quote comes from.
Couldn't tell you.
I don't know where it comes from, but that's a good quote, because if you look at the universe, how it is in the Bad Batch. Ken froze. Oh, there we go. The Bad Batch is the only one that has all those qualities. If you look at, it's like you have 3 check marks to have your full strength. So you have a stormtrooper. Well, they might have courage, but they might not have loyalty or love for their fellow stormtrooper. You look at the clones that are still in the service for the Empire. They have courage. They might have loyalty to their fellow, but they don't have loyalty or love for the Empire. You know, like all these people are missing all these pieces. And if the Bad Batch stays together and they stay focused, they have all of those.
But they will always be missing that one piece.
What's that?
Crosshair.
Right. Well, and again, that's Crosshair's missing that too. And that weakens him. So again, that could be, he's still redeemable.
If he chooses to be.
Right.
Right. And it all comes back to choice.
All redemption has to come. You can't get a redemption without choice.
You know, I thought, Amiga's little comment to him in the last episode of season 1, where she's like, and you'll always be our brother. You know, no matter what decisions he makes, no matter what actions he takes, he will always be a part of that family.
Yeah.
He will always, whether he does something they like or dislike, agree with, not agree with, they're still connected.
Now, where did the quote come from, Ben? Or was it? No, I was going to say, was it Ben Kenobi, but I don't think it is.
No, that was actually the narrator from the Caravan of Courage.
Oh. Well, you know what it sounded like? I just finished watching Willow, season 1 of Willow, and it sounds like the end of Willow.
Yeah, very similar. Willow and Caravan of Courage are like cousins.
Yeah. Which was a good show, by the way.
Yeah, we should do an episode where we talk about some of that.
Well, I would do a Caravan of Courage one too. I love the Caravan of Courage.
That one was fantastic. That was so much fun. I loved that as a kid.
I wasn't even a kid when I saw it, because you used to be able to buy it at Suncoast Video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was like, I think it was like a 2-pack or something like that. Like it was the 2, VHS. Because I remember I went and bought my letterbox edition in the blue box with the book and everything of the trilogy, and I think I picked the Ewok ones up too.
And a lot of folks don't realize, but that actually had a theatrical release in some countries, so that actually makes it a Star Wars movie and not just a TV movie, a theatrical movie.
You have to listen. You have to find when Steele talks about when he saw it, because he saw it as a kid in the theater in Australia. And him and his brother showed up, and there was like only 2 other people in the theater, and he didn't understand because he had just seen Jedi and it was packed and stuff like that. And he said there was just 2 people in the back making out.
Well, on that note, we should thank everyone for joining us for another flight.
Yeah. Sorry, it was short, and sorry for technical difficulties. My fan seemed to have taken care of itself, so I don't know what that means. What it means is I probably won't look at it, and then next week I'll have the same problem. Because
That's the way she goes.
I work on computers all day. The last thing I come home and want to work on computers again. But yeah, so anything Star Warsy? We didn't really say what we were anything Star Warsy going on this week. So John, did you have any troops?
I had OhioCon. I
Oh,
went to OhioCon.
Was
That
that
was
good?
this weekend. No,
No. Okay.
wasn't a troop, like an official troop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
it
you
was
take
just.
Kylo? You took Kylo?
No, I took Mando. It's probably
Oh.
the last time for a while I'll be able to bring him out. So, but yeah, it wasn't a great con. Like
No.
it was very very limited. Not a whole lot of Star Wars there. I did see Bob though. I did run into Bob.
Who?
Bob Cedar. He was at the
From our fan film.
Yeah,
Oh,
the trench coat
he was the
officer.
officer.
Bob was there. All
Yeah.
the way. Where's he live?
He lives north north of me. He's in
okay.
Ohio.
Okay. I didn't think he came that far. Well, I'm supposed to have a phone call with Matt. I was supposed to have one Sunday, but I was at a robotics competition all day Saturday, and I picked up an ear infection. So I basically slept all day with a bad ear infection all day Sunday. It was one of those ear infections that hurts your teeth and everything, you know. So fun times. But I'm supposed to talk to him sometime this week. I don't know. He usually calls me when that means he's going to give me a date like 3 weeks from now that he's going to want us all somewhere. So, but I didn't have any other Star Wars. I do have one Star Wars thing, 2 Star Wars things I got to show you before we go. But any Star Wars stuff for you, Ken?
Not trooping, but I have made the decision. So we're all part of the Star Wars podcast day on February 7th. And I've decided that at least 1 week a month, I'm going to listen to a new Star Wars podcast from that list of other podcasters that are going to be participating on Star Wars Podcast Day.
So here's a thought. What if we put it on a spinner and we spun the wheel and we all listen to the same new one?
Sure.
Because we can put it on, you can put a spinner on a spreadsheet on a spinner. We could just, and then ask anyone else to do it.
Yeah, the last time I checked, there's like 77 of them, so it had to be a big spinner.
Yeah, Zoe's
92.
I got the message from him. So Zoe and I, we're going to record one like a father-daughter episode for her show.
Hey, taking my idea, huh?
I know. Well, we're going to try to do it as a commercial. Like I decided for her episode, it might be one of those good ones to do who's someone who hasn't listened to your podcast before.
Gotcha.
Give some Star Wars, but say what your podcast's about. Because sometimes if someone just grabs into one episode here or there, it doesn't really do it justice.
Right. Yeah, I kind of had the same idea.
Oh, okay.
Of kind of, do an evergreen episode. Uh-oh. I think we lost Mike.
Squirrel.
He's got encyclopedias. I bet you. I guarantee you. What are you about to say, Mike? I got bets. I knew it.
This one's beautiful.
Wow, it's Dan.
I know. And then X-Wing. I haven't even opened this one yet. But Han Solo.
Wow, Matt.
It's Matt.
And Heavy Weapons. That's not the cool thing I want to show you. I got to go run and grab it. But no, I agree with your evergreen thing on that. Honestly, I just wish there was an app at one time called Star Wars Podcast app you could put on your phone, and it would give you a list of Star Wars apps because the girls were on it for the longest time. I don't know if it still exists in existence because it kept you away from the jerks that did Star Wars podcasts. Because before you listen, you don't know who's who,
Right.
And but I'm really happy for that Star Wars Day. It's just I don't know about you guys, but it just seems like everything comes in waves. Like you have 3 days of nothing, and then all of a sudden everyone wants everything. So, but let me show you one more thing, and then we'll go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited for Star Wars Podcast Day. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I got to get my rear in gear. I still haven't even recorded my second episode of the Rambling Star Wars Fan yet.
I know. I wanted to do an episode in between, but life has just been a mess. So yeah, because Rural Farm Boy had made a comment about it, about neither of us putting up a new
really?
episode. Yep.
Does he say something to the effect of "You guys stink"?
The exact quote was, Beskar Bucket, ... John, the forces behind Star Wars, ... Ken, ... no new episodes, followed by 3 question marks.
Sorry.
Yes, you are correct. And we will rectify that before the end of the year.
Ooh.
Look at that.
Because I'm printing our Mando, but I had a break in printing, so I had to test the new nozzle. So, look at that.
Did you print that too, or did you buy it that way?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I printed this one. It's got a little bit of battle damage.
That's
up
all right.
here.
Yeah, this was I bought all 4 helmets from whatchamacallit, Galactic Armory. So
I thought John had the whole Echo kit he was going to print for me.
Look, you got to remind me on any other time than 10 o'clock on
Write it
Wednesday
down.
night.
Write it down. This is
No one writes anything
recorded
down,
for the
Ken.
this is recorded for the world to hear. Hey, Rural Farm Boy, make sure you remind John to print me out Echo's armor
Yeah.
and my droid spike
Royal
and-
Farm Boy will make sure you're on task.
on blast.
Hopefully we'll get our our chat thing back up. But yeah, no, I'm printing our Mando and I was having issues with the printer, so I changed the print head. And I was like, I'm going to test this and see, because I wanted to do a big print that was a little, and so I threw that on the printer, and it came out nice. So
Awesome.
once I get our Mando done, I'll probably do a run of all the helmets. So
We'll drop that funky beat and we'll wrap up
yes, we
tonight's
will.
episode.
So good night, everybody, for those that stuck with us.
Well, you look the part, but let's see some of your moves.
Feeling like a star, you can't stop my shine. I'm loving how skinny my head's in the sky. I'm solo, I'm running solo, I'm running solo, I'm running solo. Yeah, I'm feeling good tonight. Finally feeling free and it feels so right. Oh, time to do the things I like. Gonna see a princess, everything's alright. Oh, no job but an answer to. Ain't a fixture in the palace too. No. And since the carpet nights off me, I'm living life now that I'm free, yeah. Told me get myself together, now I got myself together. Now I made it through the weather, better days are gone.